Hey, what's up, world? Santi Speaks here. So today I was talking about the Bible with one of these guys that I know, and he's never read it. He wasn't familiar with it. Considers himself a Catholic. I don't know why. Never goes to church. Not familiar with the Bible. But okay, so this is what I know about it. I know a little bit. The Bible, it's not a book, even though it's the #1 best-selling book every year. It's not a book. It's the first codex. It's the first compilation of documents ever put together by different authors, put together, bound together, and represented as one piece. But it's not a book. It's 66 books. What we typically have is a 66 book version. Catholics have a 72 book version. I think they have like the Book of Jubilees, which is 2 books maybe, and Book of Maccabees 1 and 2, and then a couple other books that I'm not familiar with. But the 66 book version is the one I'm familiar with, and I commit myself to. So this gathering of books, so the first 80% of this book, this codex, matrix, compilation of books, the first 80% is called the Old Testament. There's references to Jesus' coming, but there's no Jesus. It's the creation of the world, how we got kings, though God said we don't need kings, but man still wanted kings. And then there's the book of Numbers that divides the 12 tribes of Israel. There's book of Psalms, like Psalm 23 is the most popular that everybody knows. Walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Book of Psalms actually means poem, so it's a whole bunch of poems. Some are pretty good, some put me to sleep. There's a book called the Song of Songs, which is a song, essentially. That one puts me to sleep every time. I've read the Bible 5 times, almost cover to cover, but I've never gotten through that Song of Songs. It's just not my reading. But so the Bible was put together by Emperor Constantine. See, what you had all these prophets back in the day that were writing scriptures. The Word of God would come upon these people, and they would write down what the Word of God said. That's Old Testament. New Testament is the other 20% of the book. It's the end of the Bible, essentially, the last 20% or so. And that's where Jesus comes in. Jesus doesn't really refer to the Old Testament too much. He says it's legit, but he says, essentially, Jesus comes along to say, hey, y'all couldn't get it from reading the book, so I'm going to show you the way. I'm going to come here and show you how to do it. Jesus didn't write the New Testament. Other people wrote the New Testament. Jesus had 12 followers he called apostles. 13 actually, because Judas, who was one of them that turned his back on Jesus, got him killed, was replaced. And he was replaced at the very end. We don't know much more about it than that. So all these scriptures that are in our Bible come from real written scriptures and tablets that can still be seen today, authenticated, thousands of years old. Go to Jerusalem, go to the museums there, and you can put your eyes on them. Now there's also hundreds and hundreds more that were not put into the Bible. Well, who put the Bible together then? Well, Constantine in Constantinople put a group together called the Council of Constantine, and he made Christianity, the following of Jesus, the dominant faith of Rome before a war, well after Jesus' death. Before then, Rome was just a pagan. I don't even know, what is Rome? City, I guess? A state? I don't know. Rome took over half of Europe. Rome took over part North Africa, southern Spain, France, Italy, Greece. Rome conquered all these places and took it over. So, yeah, Rome's really strange in itself. So, now you have the Bible, what we call the Bible. The first 80% is the Old Testament, essentially the history of it. And I've told people that I know, at least read the first 5 books. It's amazing. There's some crazy stuff in there. Giants and dragons and all kinds of stuff. It's good reading. The first 5 books. And that's actually what the Jews believe, what Jewish people of Judaism consider the Torah. Except the Torah is written in Hebrew and has each letter has a specific number assigned to it. And so there's actually a study of numerology that goes along with the Torah to support different words and letters. It's really crazy, kind of magical. Hebrew. So then we have people that say, well, what about this King James Version? I had a guy telling me that his auntie only reads the King James Version, and that's all they had in the house, and he don't read it. It's crazy, and it is crazy. Look up King James now that we have YouTube. Find out who this king was that wrote the Bible, because he also wrote a lot of other stuff that's kind of demonic. But the King James Bible was written because so many people were illiterate. They didn't want people to be able to read the Bible and have access to the Word of God. They wanted only those in charge. They wanted only those in the power of the church to be able to read and explain what God said and meant. That's absolutely not biblical. That's terrible. That's why people have to know how to read. And reading is going by the way. People are not reading anymore. Learn how to read. Read the Bible for yourself. Do not depend on any man or woman standing in a pulpit to tell you what the Word says. Because that person could be wrong and they could mislead you. You take their information, then you double, triple, quadruple check it. Check your sources. But that's why the King James Version of the Bible is written in Shakespearean language, is so that it is difficult to read. Because when people were starting to become literate, King James Version wasn't written until like 1200 or 1500 after death, AD, which is something else that's kind of funny. They say BC, before Christ, AD, after death. And then you have people that are anti-Christian, and they say, well, it's BCC and ADC or something. Well, BCC means before Common Era, BCE. And ACE means after Common Era. Well, what's the Common Era? They're referring to Jesus. Simpletons. Simpletons. They won't say before Christ or after death, but they will say before the Common Era. Well, what Common Era? You know, the death of Jesus. Oh, okay, now I understand. Simpletons. Those are the Antichrists. We let them do what they gotta do. Bible says only 144,000 souls getting into heaven. They're not. That makes it easier. But that's the Bible. Check it out. The first 4 books are called the Gospels. Gospel means truth. The translation of the word gospel means truth. So you have the first 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Start with John. John's an easy read. It's a good read. It explains a lot. It explains Jesus pretty much from birth through death. And then the Gospels got some things. All the other books of the New Testament are like Romans, Galatians, Ecclesiastes, Colossians. Well, what are all these crazy words? These crazy words are letters. They're not even books. They're short letters. They should be called letters to the Galatians. Letters to the Galatians. Oh, I just lost the word. I'm not going to remember it now. Letters to the Romans. Paul was writing letters to the Roman churches because they were messing up. They were starting to practice Christianity, but then they were getting off path. Book of Hebrews, same thing. Paul was writing a letter to the Hebrews of a certain location that were on the right path of Christ, but then they were starting to do goofy stuff and go back to the old pagan ways. And then you have Acts of the Apostles. Well, what is that? That's an explanation of what was going on after Jesus was murdered on the cross. The apostles, when Jesus went on the cross, all his boys ran. All the apostles, saint this and saint that, they all, we're not with him, we're out of here. They all ran, bunch of cowards. That's what I say. I mean, they still did good work, but at that point, I would have stood with them, I think I'd have stood ground. I don't know. I've been put in some tricky situations and stood my ground. They weren't after the apostles, they were after Jesus. And they got him. So when they crucified Jesus, all of his apostles took off and ran. And then we have the Acts of the Apostles, which is a book. And we find out, what they did. And Jesus comes back from the dead and he's like, hey, what's going on, guys? Why'd you all run from me? And then we have the book of Revelation, which says, hey, this is what's going to happen at the end. This is what Jesus says. This is what you're going to see. You're going to see UFOs and flying saucers, and the clouds are going to be all crazy, and there's going to be madness and wars and talks of wars and neighbor against neighbor and all this stuff. I was kidding about the UFOs. That's not biblical. But all the rest is legit. So like I was telling my guy, read the first 5 books and then read the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Read those first 5 books. Because it's interesting. And you're going to find out a lot. And then go into the New Testament and read the whole New Testament. Read the whole New Testament. It doesn't take forever. Seriously, sit down and read the book. You can get through it even with working a full-time job and raising little kids. You can get through the whole first New Testament in a week. You ain't got to study it first. Just read it. Go through it. Zoop. When it comes to bloodlines and they're saying this and listing all these people, boom, 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 boom. Don't read all those names. There's no reason to. You're not going to remember them. There's no test at the end. It just proves the point that Jesus was lineage of King David, essentially. Yeah, check out King David's story. He's got his own star that people put on flags, and that's the Star of David, right? You're going to find out David was up to some nonsense. David had one of his buddies murdered so he could steal his wife, Bathsheba, and got into adultery. He got into murder, but he also did some good things, and he's got a lot of psalms and things like that, little poems that he wrote. But they were all up to nonsense. They were all up to mischief. And that's what's great about the Bible when you read it for yourself, is you're like, what? Because like you've probably heard of Saint Stephen and Saint Paul. Well, Paul essentially had Stephen murdered. He took part in that. He's got blood on his hands for that. Paul did. Saint Paul. Paul that wrote most of the Bible. The New Testament. Yeah. He took out Saint Stephen. And he did some other dirty things. It's all there in the book. But they don't talk about it in churches. And they don't talk about it in depth. And they don't relate to that and how it relates to us. But even Moses. Look at Moses. Moses was a murderer too. He killed one. I know he killed one. I think he killed two Egyptians before he crossed the Red Sea. Abraham was going to kill his son. Abraham was up to some mischief. He's got some dirt on his hands. He's got some blood on his hands. It's there in the book. But you won't know if you don't take a look. Anyway, that's it. Peace.